The big story and the story that we are tracking tonight on the news today at 9. A new and sensational twist to the corporate espionage probe. The Delhi police now has recovered documents that they claim could be linked to the finance minister's budget speech next week from the accused. Photocopies of what are seen as sensitive documents, inputs related to various ministries have also been found. That's not all. Headlines today has learned that the National Security Advisor Ajit Doval had sent out a warning to the Cabinet Secretary in October last year about sensitive information being leaked out of government departments last year. Now all 7 accused have been arrested and sent to jail. A former journalist, Shantanu Saikia, who ran a website for the petroleum sector, is among the 7 people arrested in connection with this particular story. And stolen documents have been found. Also arrested Prayas Jain, who was a consultant and a former journalist working in the energy sector. It's our big story, and how big will it get is what our top story is about.
The Spygate scandal is bigger. Its murky web extending well beyond the petroleum ministry. Even the FM's budget speech may have been compromised. Papers related to power and coal ministries have been recovered. And the Delhi police is investigating if the spies leaked Defence Ministry documents as well. The big question, who could be the mastermind of this well-oiled espionage racket?
Delhi police has a strong suspicion that Ishwar and Asharam were just the cog in the wheel which was running this racket.
My fear is this will be buried only at this level, because if it is investigated further, many big names will come up.
Mr. Virappa Moily had said that, well, yes, papers were leaked from ministry. And if anyone who has to answer the questions, it is Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and all the former petroleum ministers of the UPA regime as to why they were silent for all these years.
तो ऐसी कौन सी कंपनियां हैं, इसका खुलासा होना चाहिए. इन कंपनियों ने कौन-कौन से अधिकारियों का इस्तेमाल किया, कर्मचारियों का इस्तेमाल किया, इसका भी खुलासा होना चाहिए. और अगर यूपीए के जमाने में भी ऐसा होता था तो सरकार पूरी तरह से स्वतंत्र है इसकी छानबीन कराने के लिए और ऐसे अधिकारियों के खिलाफ कार्रवाई करने के लिए, या कोई भी व्यक्ति इसमें शामिल हो उसके खिलाफ कार्रवाई करने के लिए.
All 7 accused were produced in court on Friday. According to crime branch sources, Asaram used to switch off the CCTV and his 2 sons used to then slip into the oil ministry office. Accused Asharam, Ishwar Singh and Rajkumar were sent to 14 days judicial custody, while accused Laltan Prasad, Shantanu Saikia, Prayas Jain and Rakesh were sent to police custody till February 23rd. Sources also say that the accused had inside help or had access to CCTV monitors. The accused switched off CCTV cameras after office hours to enter rooms undetected.
As you can see here, there is a CCTV camera that has been installed here. According to the CCTV camera, the accused would walk into these rooms and then take out information. Now, the CCTV camera also has given some information about who all these people were interacting with. So the Delhi police was trying to reconstruct the crime scene.
3 diaries have been recovered from one of the accused, Prayas Jain, a former journalist and an energy consultant, and it contains names of various government officials who may soon be asked to join investigations.
Entered the premises in one Indigo car which was carrying a fake entry sticker. But before entering this complex, they used to disable the CCTV camera system installed here. And this is what Delhi police is saying is incredible. How is it that they entered and went out of this complex without being noticed? And that is why it has not ruled out connivance of some local staff here. With camera person Ajay Kumar Sinha, Arthur Khan in Delhi for Headlines Today.
Okay, let's turn first to the modus operandi. Let's give you a sense, try and make sense of all that is happening in this corporate espionage story. There is Shastri Bhavan. Remember, this is one of the most high-profile areas where all the bureaucrat secretaries to the government of several ministries reside and work out of. Now, the gang enters the ministry after office hours. That's becoming clear post 9 p.m. They show their identity card, use forged IDs and entry passes to enter Shastri Bhavan. For a long time, it's been believed it's been porous, it's been easy to enter, but clearly fake IDs were enough, so questions will arise over the security. Then, of course, they disable the CCTV cameras. That's the next step they take. After that, and you've got to look at this step by step. This is a well-oiled operation that they are doing. They use duplicate keys to access confidential papers. So they obviously knew they had got access to duplicate keys. So someone within the system could well have given them that access. They discussed the stolen document details with the client. Question is this the first time they've done it, or have they been doing it regularly, only whether they caught this time? What we also find is that they make photocopies of these confidential documents. So photocopies were made of these confidential documents. Clearly they knew how the system worked within the office in Shastri Bhavan. Which is leading me to my big question. Corporate espionage, are the latest arrests only the tip of the iceberg? That's the big question that I'm going to raise. Joining me now is TSR Subramaniam, former cabinet secretary and therefore someone eminently suitable to answer this question. Nalin Kohli is the national spokesperson of the BJP. Sanjay Jha is the national spokesperson of the Congress. I'm also being joined by Sunil Alak, Chairman SK Advisors, and someone who's served on various management boards and will give us a corporate perspective. And Sunil Jain, Managing Editor of the Financial Express, who's tracked various ministries, including the Petroleum Ministry. I appreciate all of you joining us, but I'm going to come to you, TSR Subramaniam, as the senior most person on our panel and someone who's had intimate knowledge of the government functioning. Have we revealed the worst kept secret? Is this simply about something that's been happening for years? This time, it could be a little wider, that's all.
No, not wider, but alas, you're probably correct. This is the worst kept secret, but my surprise is the quality of the intrusion. The organization, the preparation, the number of groups, clearly other people are involved within there. The standard technique is the lower levels to just bribe straight away. And this has been going on for years and years. For industry or business, information and influence are key. In the Indian context, the information can come by hook or crook, and influence can come through crony capitalism route. I must congratulate this government that has been exposed now. The important thing is, let us hope they will go through till the end.
But hold on, sir, hold on. This is Shastri Bhavan.
Yes. I'll make one more point here.
Yes.
The conventional wisdom in India, in the business community, is that money is to be made in Delhi, not in technology, not in manufacture, not in marketing. You have a good system here to get information, preempt the others, get your windfall profits through, influence the decision-making process, change decisions, nip them in the bud, and then preempt. So the technology...
And this has been happening for the longest time?
For a long time.
When you were cabinet secretary, did you fear that this was happening, that corporates were getting access to information? We are now talking of access also possibly in the context of the budget. And the interesting thing, sir, is that the manner in which
No, one more point, I will then focus on the event itself.
Yes.
Don't we have instances where our ministers have been appointed from outside Delhi? Don't we know that secretaries to government postings and transfers are settled from outside the cabinet? This has happened for the last 10 years. And
is it last 10 years, or has it been happening for the longest time?
Probably earlier also.
The stakes only higher now?
My knowledge is from 80, it's been happening, but not to the extent it has been happening for the last 10 to 15 years.
Sir, but the manner, you've got duplicate keys, you've got fake ID cards, the level at which the Shastri Bhavan has been infiltrated,
This is highly frightening.
It's frightening. You know, these are words. Sunil Jain, let me get you as someone who tracks these ministries. Do you also believe that what is being revealed in the last 24 hours is only the worst kept secret? That those who cover ministries, particularly those ministries like telecom, ministries like petroleum, where the stakes are high, where there are corporate rivalries, do you believe this has been happening for the longest time? And in this instance, today a journalist has been arrested. So it appears that it's not just Neta Babu corporates, but journalists also who are masquerading as consultants.
Rajdeep is a former journalist, so I don't think you should sort of tar all journalists with the same brush.
I'm not tarring all journalists, but I'm raising the question of a journalist.
You see, I think one thing is very clear, that as all journalists know, all journalists get papers from various sources all the time. Now the question is that there are 2 points here. One is that the journalists who get the papers don't know that they've been got through these kind of means. So I think any journalist who knew that this is the modus operandi, that fake keys, duplicate cards and stuff like that. So I don't think any journalist knew what kind of papers they're getting. That's point number one. Point number two is that, the journalists who get papers typically use it as a first source of information. And once you get that information, then you build upon it, the credible journalists. I mean, you obviously have some journalists who will just go and use the paper. But to answer your question, yes, there has been a lot of papers being exchanged from the corporate world, from people with
Have
journalists.
you heard
all
of
the time.
journalists selling information? Let me be more direct. Have you heard of journalists who have access to sensitive information, selling them in the past to corporates? Or corporates using
journalists don't sell information.
Corporates using journalists as middlemen. Journalists as middlemen.
Rajdeep, corporates hand over papers to journalists. I haven't heard of journalists being used as middlemen. But if they are being used as middlemen, I wouldn't be surprised, because every profession, has some rotten people. So,
right.
I wouldn't be too worried about it. I wouldn't say that, listen, the state of journalism in India is rotten.
Okay,
because we've had, some journalists or ex-journalists.
I am looking at this case in particular because Sunil Alag, let me tell you what a Mumbai-based CEO has said today in an interview. He says this is not the first time documents were leaking from the oil ministry or from other government agencies. Most of the cabinet note agendas, ministries' opinions and government stand in court are regularly leaked to the corporates who make millions on the stock markets. This is what has been quoted. Do you concede that corporates themselves are the ones who have thrived in this wheeling dealing culture?
Look, I mean, it will be crazy on anyone's part to say that the corporates will not thrive on this, but what I'm surprised at is what was happening in the United States about 25 years ago, when you had people moving in for even finding out when a new product was being launched by, say, P&G, Levers or anyone else, and passing on the information. But they've moved on. They've made the security so tight since then. And what is happening in India today is what happened in the United States 25 years ago. I mean, how can you just, even if you have a false identity, you are now required to have your thumbprint, or you've got your stuff to enter, you've got all kinds of codes. People are walking in and out of offices. So as far as I'm concerned, there is no doubt in anybody's mind that if junior people like this are being used, see, earlier there used to be a lot of rumor that if there was anyone senior, they don't have to do all this. They can pick up the phone, meet the guy over dinner and tell them what's happening. So obviously it's clear that no senior member or ministers or anyone seem to be involved in this.
The reason I'm asking,
a junior lot of gangs getting into a place, ringing up someone. There'll be a complete chain which will go. This is not, I mean, you'll have to really, this lot that have got arrested are only the beginning of somebody who will pass it on to someone else, who will pass it on to someone else, and it will finally get to where it is worth something.
That's an interesting point.
So you've got to be
That's
seeing
an
that,
interesting
look,
point you're making, because
ago, all over the world, this was the way corporates were actually finding out about new launches, marketing techniques, everything, and we moved on. But India doesn't seem to have moved on anywhere, on this.
Because the fact is, Reliance Industries in a statement has already made it clear that they claim that the official of their company who has been arrested, they had no knowledge of what he was up to. So the question is, was this happening at a lower level with the higher ups, whether in a Reliance or in the Petroleum Ministry, having no knowledge of it? Or, as is being suggested, are these the soft targets? That's the question there to you, Nalin Kohli. Yes, these arrests have been made. Yes, it is reassuring that the government, and yesterday the Petroleum Minister on the news today at 9 told me no one will be spared. The question is, have the small fish been caught? Some junior official who has used duplicate keys, how high does it go up? And if it goes higher up, is the government willing to act? Or is the government only going to leave it here?
Well, I thought you just quoted the Petroleum Minister, Mr. Sardesai. He himself said,
yes, but
we're going to take it to its logical end.
But I am cynical.
Logical end is waiting for the investigation to
Sorry,
move.
Nalin, to
Let's
intervene.
Go one by one.
Sorry to intervene. I am cynical because in the past similar arrests have been made and the cases have not been taken to their logical conclusion.
No, you're mistaking it. I'm not criticizing you. Your job is to ask questions. That's exactly what a journalist does. So let's go one by one. Here it's a case where it seems when there was a fear, an apprehension, a trap has finally yielded results. The investigation has started. Delhi Police, the Commissioner himself came on record on the very first day. The Minister has spoken yesterday. So the government wants to go. Now it's revealing that this seems to have been a well-organized racket. It's also possible that people at other levels were involved. Now, it would be within the government, outside the government, within organizations. All the aspects have to be looked at. You can't spare anyone if they are stealing from the government, because then they are stealing information which belongs to the public. The government is here for the public. It's not meant for someone's personal benefit. That's the first part. Second is, we need to also understand, is this restricted to the Petroleum Ministry, or is there a nexus working beyond it? Now, these are matters when there is an intent of the government to get to the bottom of it, the investigation obviously is going to reveal, but we need to wait for some details to come out, the police to do their job, and then we'll all know the answers eventually.
Let me therefore inject that note of cynicism as a journalist, because in 2001, similar arrests were made. There was an FIR which was filed, and I am told now by my sources that FIR is languishing in the Parliament Street station and has not been acted upon. And Sanjay Jha, in the past we found that when petroleum ministers, or when ministers particularly in infrastructure ministries that are seen as sensitive, have raised the red flag, in the years of the UPA, some of them were removed. You might recall Mani Shankar Iyer, removed as petroleum minister, Jaipal Reddy, removed as petroleum minister. So I am asking you as a UPA leader, is there a sense, or a Congress leader, is there a sense that political parties have tended to protect or actually act against those who want to be whistleblowers? If a minister wants to be a whistleblower, if the minister wants to expose middlemen, then that minister actually is not protected by the government. And that's the record of the UPA. In the Radia tapes, as is being mentioned, and I'll come to the Radia tapes in a moment.
Yeah, Rajiv, let me answer your question.
Yes.
I mean, there has always been, I'm aware of the ministers who changed their portfolios, and it was a lot of political, speculative gossip as to why they were changed. I can't comment on that for the simple reason that there was no evidence proved like the way it has emerged right now.
Why was the Jaipal, why should you not comment, sir? I'm sorry, I want to be specific. Sorry, Sanjay Jha. Why was a Jaipal Reddy and a Mani Shankar Iyer removed? Why? There was no explanation given.
Well, let me tell you, I think we answered it then, and I'll repeat it again. And let me answer the bigger question, but that was the prerogative of the Prime Minister. And I don't think one can always attach and attribute motives to it. But let me add a point. There is absolutely no denying, Rajdeep, and it's a fact, and I'll agree with you on the panel, that in most kind of economies of the kind that we have, natural resources do become a place where crony capitalism really mushrooms. It's a reality. And I think that's one aspect that we need to definitely, not just as a government, but as a society, be concerned about. I'm not going to deny that. The truth, however, is that if you look at the current episode of whatever has happened, I will link it to what Sunil Jain mentioned, or I think Sunil Lalag mentioned. He said there are some people who may have access to the minister, but you see, everyone doesn't have that access, and therefore it's those business rivalries who don't have that access to the government who employ these subterfuge or subterranean methods to access private documents and files, because they then create a level playing field. And that is the reality that we are confronted with today. And I think the larger point that we cannot ignore is the fact that today we remain susceptible to all kinds of big business influence, because the issues that came up earlier, which was regulating the lobbying sector, was never talked about. We never talk about the supply side of corruption. Supply side of corruption has got a huge role to play in giving our economy the whole impression of being hugely corrupt, whether it's a bureaucracy or a politician on the take, I don't know. Let investigations establish it. Sanjay, but there is a vulnerability, and big business has a tendency to exploit it, especially on natural resources, infrastructure, mineral, land, spectrum, and so on and so forth.
Okay, can I be more specific? The fact is, let's be honest, TSR Subramaniam, Sunil Lalag made a good point. The fact is, if I'm a top business house, I have direct access usually to the government, to the ministers. I possibly know enough information to carry on my business. So, is this something where people at the lower level, as is being suggested, are using this information perhaps because there are corporate rivalries, because that information has value in the marketplace?
Value for 100 reasons.
So, but as we've seen in the Radia tapes, also questions were raised about the manner in which lobbyists, PR agents, consultants had undue access to those in power. Is this what it actually is at the moment? And someone in this case has blown the whistle for whatever reason. People are questioning why this has happened, but the fact is you have to give the government credit for having made it happen.
This is the arm's length theory. At some point of time, you want to distance yourself from what happened there. Classically, this is what happens to an American company operating in India they have stronger laws, as we have seen. They get punished there for any bribe giver, supply side. So here, they locate a local agency, pay him a huge consultancy fee and tell him, I don't want to know where you got it from, give me the information.
Is it more likely therefore the multinationals, the foreign companies which are coming into these sectors, the Indian companies already have their networks? Do we believe that the Indian, because in this case, two Indian companies have been named in this context, Reliance and SR.
I'm only talking about the arm's length theory. The Indian companies are more likely to do that in my past experience than the foreign companies, number one. I think 2 points also were made here. I think the question of soft target journalism were made. Will you give me exactly half a minute to make a point here? I just want to make a quick point and stop it here. Last year, I gave us the book release panel of P.C. Parak's coal book.
Coal book on the coal.
There were 200 cameras. There were a huge furor in the every newspaper reported. The week next was Guha Thakur Tha's book on gas wars. There are 400 cameras, bigger one. Not a single newspaper or television channel opened it now. I have not heard this point from anywhere in public. I think we need to grow up in India.
Are you making the express?
I'm not making an allegation.
No.
I'm giving a fact.
Are you saying
I'm giving a fact. You draw your inference. You draw your inference.
No. Are you saying therefore that the media has been reluctant to look at corporates in terms of possible corporate scandals or the manner in which corporates are seen to be misusing the system?
That's the consistent feeling that one has been getting, that lie doggo, do not rub anybody on the wrong side, and that is true with the political class, higher bureaucracy, and the business class. Don't scratch them beyond the point. If you can do it in the line of party politics, that's okay. But don't go in for this kind of a thing. This, I think, has been the unwritten code.
Sunil Jain, a serious charge is being made
Not
here
a charge,
by the
not a
Fokker.
charge.
Okay.
It's an observation.
An observation is being made that we in the media, we journalists are reluctant in a sense to look at the skeletons that might be there in the cupboards of top corporates. We are more inclined in a sense to target political parties, possibly bureaucrats at times, but not the top corporates. And to that extent, this is what is being revealed now. The worst kept secret is because we've kept it a secret for so long.
Well, actually, there are two things here. Firstly, if you take what's happened at face value, the place where the corruption was happening was in the government of India, not in the media. That's point number one.
Yes.
As far as top corporates are concerned, or TSR Subramaniam's allegation or observation or whatever he wants to couch it as, the fact is that that the largest scandal that you've been talking about in recent times, whether it's Adarsh, whether it's the CWG, whether it's the telecom scandal, the Raja scandal. I don't think the Raja scandal was unearthed by anybody, in the government. These were all scandals unearthed by the media. If you look at top corporates, you look at some of the companies that have been mentioned, some of the companies that have not been mentioned, they all filed, huge lawsuits against journalists. I mean, I have a few against myself. So, and those lawsuits have been filed basically because journalists are getting after companies. So I think, I wouldn't pay too much attention to the observation, if that's what Mr. Subramaniam wants to call it.
Right.
That the journalists are hand in glove with the corporates. But I want to make one point here. All of us seem to be assuming, based on what the Delhi police has said, and the Delhi police hasn't come out, with a serious, charge sheet or anything yet. We are all assuming that these were documents. Just because something is marked top secret doesn't mean that document is something which is necessarily top secret.
So you don't believe they are linked to the budget? You don't believe that these stories which are being doing the rounds, that some of these documents were being used to provide inputs to the budget? You don't believe that?
One minute, Raj. I have no clue about these documents. I'm not making a point about these documents.
Right.
What I'm saying in general is that India tends to use the Official Secrets Act way too often. Documents that have no reason to be marked secret are marked secret. That's point number two. Point number three is that the way that governments behave, a lot of the stuff that we know, a lot of the information that we've got as journalists, a lot of the information that we've got as citizens of the country, is information which has come out from documents such as these. Now, I'm not justifying what happened, so let's make no mistakes about that. I'm not saying that what happened was right, but I'm saying, like for example, the fact that we got to know that Prime Minister Manmohan Singh wanted to be off, wanted to have a hands-off approach towards Mr. Raja. That's how to know from these kind of leaks.
No, no,
the
I
fact
think
that, that the government had
No, no,
ordered-
Sunil,
No,
let's
what
not.
I'm saying is that don't throw out,
Sunil, there are two issues. One is documents which are validly obtained in the course of a journalistic investigation. The others are documents which are stolen using fake ID cards, using duplicate keys, and using then photocopying them and sending them to corporates who obviously, in some instances, may have use for them. Which leads me to the point, Sunil Alagh, that how much are corporates themselves still desirous of such documents, these so-called top secret documents? Are they really top secret? As Sunil Jain seems to suggest, many of them are not really secret, but the way the government, because there is opaqueness in our government, that's why these documents are becoming valuable.
I'll make two very simple points. I think Mr. Subramaniam said multinationals may be involved.
Yes.
I think it's next to impossible because the laws of the land where the MNC comes from, if they get to know about this, the right down from the chairman will get arrested in America if there's an American MNC. If this is proved, nobody will do this from a multinational point of view today. The second point that is being made, I agree with Sunil Jain, every ministry writes to the finance minister about what they think they want in the budget and what they should do. Nobody knows what the finance minister and his team finally accepts. So was this a document? It's just one document which might have gone to the finance minister. So, but whether it's been considered, whether it's not been, we don't even know what's there.
No,
so
I
let's
take
not
that, but
jump
Sunil
to a
Alagh, is it
conclusion
not
that
true?
this was a top
Sunil
secret
Alagh,
document.
is it not true that
Ministry of
corporates
Food will write to the
Sunil, just a
finance
minute.
minister. You go to any minister,
Sunil,
there will be letters which have gone to the finance minister for his budget. Now,
Sunil,
whether
is
this
it
makes
not
sense
true
or
that
not, we'll see. The third
Sunil,
point,
is it not true
no, the
that
third
top
point I want to make
corporates are
very
using?
quickly.
Sunil, is it not true that top corporates are using consultants who are lobbyists? Is it not true that there are middlemen being used?
No, Rajdeep, what will happen in this particular case is a lot of people think that if I take a document to a corporate, and I produce for him something which he doesn't have, which he doesn't know, I'll get paid for it. So there are people who are working in the hope, let me pick up as many documents as I can and let me take it then to a corporate. It's not corporate initiated. But I don't think a corporate which is shown a document, like anybody in the media, if it is shown a document which has meaning, they will not pay for it, if it means something. So I think we are going the wrong way. I think there might be a group of people who have started something, who have been getting paid a lot, and now they are copying documents, because if you take a look at half of the people who've been arrested, you wouldn't think they would know enough about gas and oil and everything to know what documents to take.
I take
so
that
it goes
point.
to another level, which goes, I think it's like the Watergate scandal. The 4 guys who went in, if you met them, they had no idea what they were doing. Now you must investigate it and take it all the way to the final conclusion to say where were these documents heading. They would go to another level, which will go to another level, and then finally get to the root of what is happening. And I must compliment this current government to have, this is not something that the media has unearthed. They have themselves suspected, they have themselves put in the trap, they have themselves tried to clear the scene. So let's
can I hold you
a
there?
little bit that what is happening now, and let's get to the root of it. This is the tip of the iceberg, Rajdeep. No question in my mind, but this is the first time that the government has moved in to clear itself.
I know you're saying somewhere that the government of India has moved in to clear what has been existing for several, but you wanted to make a point.
Yes, for a long time.
I am raising the issue. I am raising the issue whether consultants, whether middlemen have always existed in Delhi.
And there's a price for that they will take documents and show it to people if there's anybody who's a buyer for it. But I don't think it gets initiated by a large corporation.
Let us not make the mistake, I don't want to make allegations. Let us not make the mistake of thinking that all our businessmen are doodh ke dule hue hain. And in the case of the 2 major examples of telecom, and we know what Raja did, but he had to do it along with 20-50 other people. We know what happened in Colgate. He had to do it with 50, 60, 100 other people. So let us not also, number one. Number two, the fact that I had made a comment, a description of an event, it has not been commented upon, I think proves the point that I made.
Can I bring the
on the other one?
But can I bring in the politicians? And I want to sort of understand this. You've got Sunil Alagh claim this is the first time, Sanjay Jha, that a government has actually acted against this. The previous occasion that I know happened when Mr. Vajpayee was in power. Am I to understand? And yesterday the minister claimed this to me, that during the UPA years this was freely happening. Referred to the Radia investigation, said the government of the day was not interested in cracking down on the possibility of middlemen existing. Am I to understand that the UPA was soft, and Narendra Modi is trying to prove a point here? that he is claiming when he said na khaunga na khane dunga, this is part of the part of his effort to crack down on what is being seen as this kind of unholy nexus that exists in India.
Well, Rajdeep, I'm not surprised that BJP or its sympathizers are going to try and make a big virtue out of this situation. But what is the truth? The truth is that if that was the case during the time of UPA, then I must say that we had a very irresponsible opposition that did not raise up the issue of corruption. So I think that's a ridiculous argument. I think if there was something wrong, I think the government would have taken necessary steps if they found there was something disturbing or an evidence.
No, why didn't the UPA government act?
But I think the bigger point.
No, Sanjay Jha, why didn't the UPA government act? Sanjay Jha, why didn't the UPA government act? It's not as if this happened only in February of 2015. This has been happening for years. The cabinet secretary says this has been happening for 10, 20 years. The fact is that when the UPA was in power, I didn't hear the petroleum minister come on record saying something like this has happened, we are cracking down. Suddenly we seem to be realizing that middlemen exist. Are you willing to give credit to the Modi government? Are you willing to give credit to the Modi government for openly cracking down?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not, because I'll tell you why. There is the proof of the pudding is in the eating. As this story unravels, you will see there will be wheels within wheels. Because end of day, I think how did the entire episode first come into light? I think there is a lot more that we need to know. But I think the bigger point that I want to make, Rajdeep, on your program, and this is something that political establishments need to be worried about, is the fact that a corporate, you have a UPA voted out last year. Maybe the BJP government will be voted out in 2019, but the larger big business only grows bigger and bigger over a period of time. And I think until and unless they become what is very popularly called in economics as the stationary bandit, they begin to dominate the system.
Are you willing to concede that Mr. Modi has sent a strong message? Are you willing to concede that somewhere Mr. Modi has sent out a strong message?
Well, let me tell you what I think is the biggest paradox, because this government's policies are very brazenly pro-corporate. And everybody knows the proximity that Mr. Modi and his government has with certain very, very well-known industrial magnates of this country. Therefore, there could be a much deeper layer of a competitive business rivalry at play, and the government is trying to make a virtue out of a necessity. But the bottom line is that we have a problem, and that is real as on today. And it could be affecting many ministries across different levels. So if they have talked about CCTV cameras, that's not going to solve your corruption problem. You should ask Mr. Kohli, where is the Lokpal, and why don't you have an independent CBI? That would give the system a greater robustness and self-confidence, which it doesn't have today.
Mr. Kohli, you want to respond that in a sense this is an eyewash. It is being suggested that the government itself is playing, according to the Congress party, and Sanjay Jha is caught in the midst of some kind of corporate rivalry, is what is being suggested, and this could be part of that. How do you respond to that? Is this Mr. Modi cracking down on any form of bureaucratic corruption that exists, which includes leaking of documents?
I only desire patient listening, and I'll leave it to the judgment of the viewers to make up their mind whose argument makes better sense.
Yes.
Let's go one by one. Let's start with the business houses. With the business houses, there was a point when India had 97% taxation. And it's no secret how the black economy got a massive boost. But that has been removed. Number two, that if you dine with somebody, so if I sit down and have, say, dinner with you, Mr. Sardesai, does that mean I'm buying out the media because I'm the spokesperson of the media if I pay? Or are you trying to get information from me which is classified? It's not like that. Life is much more grey. We need to have our ethics. Third, we are supposed to be helping, and we means this BJP government, NDA government is helping corporates with crony capitalism. Why don't we look at the coal bidding that's taken place? Stuff that was at reserve price of 40 crores is now going for 750 crores. Huge figures, 2,000 crores. Is that crony capitalism? To have an open bidding process which helps the structure and raises money for the states? But I think, the Congress will always make allegations. It is of no news to us. I have not finished, Mr. Jha. Yes, I'm glad you brought Dr. Manmohan Singh's name, a very decent man, but certainly he was coal minister when the biggest scam was exposed. Then he said, why did the NDA or BJP not raise it in Parliament? Now, I can't help a comatose statement like that. Mr. Hansraj Ahir and Mr. Prakash Javadekar raised the coal scam. 2G was fought out in Parliament, and then finally there was a JPC. So I can't argue against something that is not based on facts.
So you're
If
saying
they want to rewrite
you're saying your
everything in
government
fiction,
you're
let them
saying
do
your
so.
government
We
is
leave it to
not
the
caught.
viewers.
You're
This
saying
government took steps. No. This government, 1 minute, hold on. This government has taken steps. You are seeing the beginnings of results, and we are going to be criticized for it
Rajdeep
by
has
the Congress
taken steps
party,
against very
which has
junior
left
people.
behind probably the worst
Let me
possible
see if they're able
example
to name
of how
the
pathetic
real
India
big
could have been. Well,
business
somebody is
lobby
caught.
heads
My last
in their
comment
FIR.
on business.
Let's wait for
My
that.
last. I have not interrupted you, Mr. Jha.
Yes.
Don't be so defensive, Mr. Jha. Let me finish. My last comment
I'm just putting
is
some
let's
facts
go
on record.
on what says Sunil Alak said. There could be multiple aspects to this whole information. Whether it goes right top to a corporate honcho or it stops at the doorstep of a mid-level officer. Suppose hypothetically a mid-level officer in a private company to justify his job, to say that he's getting is using unethical practices, he will be held responsible. But is that the direction of the corporate? Let us not paint anybody guilty, but whoever is guilty will be punished.
Okay.
That is the approach that has to be.
Okay, we will take your words on it. Whoever you want to make a final point, since I started the debate with you, do you believe in your long tenure that governments today have the capacity to resist pressures that are put on them by corporates?
One sincerely hope so. If we have to become a world power, we need to do that. We cannot go by what happened in the past few years. This is an excellent start, excellent signal. Many people said it must be followed up to the bitter end, whatever the end is. Number one, there's a clear difference between pro-business and crony capitalism. Let us hope that we are pro-business and pro-poor, but not crony capitalism.
Okay, we will end on that. We will wait and see where this investigation leads us at the moment. But
Rajdeep,
clearly,
one last point.
quickly,
Rajdeep,
30
one
seconds.
last point. I am not defending the fact that corporates would have used the data if it came to them.
Yes.
Look, I'm not defending the corporates. All I'm saying is make sure that have they initiated this? If the information is useful and sold to a corporate, of course they will do it. All I'm saying is because they didn't need to initiate it because they can go to the higher authorities and meet them.
Sunil, we will
Why
leave
will
that
they
to
do
the
this?
police. We will leave that to the Delhi police to tell us because the investigations are still on.
I'm not
we will leave
defending
that.
corporates over here.
Okay, we will leave
If
that
they're
for
guilty,
now.
they will be guilty.
Okay, we will wait and see where this investigation goes. Appreciate all of you joining us.